Welcome back to Galaxy Grid. I'm Alex Thorne, head of firm-wide research at Galaxy. We have a great episode for you today. Will Owens, Lucas Chayan, and Zach Picorni from Galaxy Research are here to talk about the issues of the week. What's up, gentlemen?
GM.
Hey, good morning.
This week, we're going to give a recap on Thanksgiving, what it was like going home, talking to your friends and family, given the market correction, I should say, dip. Dip seems a little optimistic given what we're seeing. We'll also talk about Michael Saylor and MSTR are stockpiling dollars. What is this? This was just announced on Monday morning, December 1st. And we'll talk about, we'll get an update on Monad, the new L1 that launched last week, what activity we're seeing there. We'll also dive into some quick hits, prediction markets, Hyperliquid, Ethereum's Fusaka upgrade, and more. And before we get to any of that, I need to remind you to please refer to the link to the disclaimer in the show notes. And note that none of the information in the show constitutes investment advice or an offer, recommendation, or solicitation by Galaxy or any of its affiliates to buy or sell any securities. Gentlemen, hello. We're back from Thanksgiving vacation, if we can call it that, break, for one final push to year end. We're recording on Monday, December 1st. It is the last month of 2025. How are we feeling?
Gross.
Lucas isn't feeling good. He said he's sick.
Yes, I've got neurovirus. Price action has led to my body starting to break down slowly as the hopium fades.
You look like a ghost right now.
Thank you to my nieces. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, I mean, I think I feel like the last Thanksgiving was a very interesting experience because on the one hand, you had Bitcoin price action slowly kind of grinding up, which gave, I think, people some hope. I think I had a lot of family members who were either one, not interested in crypto, which was unfortunate, or two, if they were, like their biggest question for me was like, what does crypto have to show for itself versus like AI, and why should they not be more interested in AI at this point? Which
a discerning question.
Yes, I think is an important question, and for me, I think there's a lot of interlinkages between the two that will play out over the coming years, but that definitely a cause, probably something that's impacting price. But overall, I was excited to see that people were much less focused on it being a scam or not having any value, and much more kind of curious to understand, like, all right, it seems like this thing is getting adoption. Like, why should I be interested in it?
What about you, Zach and Will? Any takes from the friends and family?
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of feel like it's like a lose-lose situation for me to tell my family to buy Bitcoin or something like that, just because if it goes down, they blame me and they're like, "Oh, you lost me money." And then when it goes up, they're kind of like, "You should have told me to buy more. Like you should have pushed me harder to invest all my money into Bitcoin." But yeah, I mean, I feel like overall sentiment, everyone's just kind of cautious right now. Like Bitcoin just closed November down around 17%. Total crypto market cap was above 3 trillion yesterday, and now it's not, like kind of 2.9 trillion now. But I will say my sister finally purchased some Bitcoin over Thanksgiving when we were together, which is cool to see. Yeah, obviously you got the uncle who's, perma bear, always talking about how it's going to zero. But yeah.
What's that? What's that uncle's deal? Is still talking about that, Will?
Yeah, I mean, he always talks about how he has some friends that are into crypto and how they like lost everything. And he was like, "Yeah, my friend lost all his money this past month." And I'm like, Bitcoin's down like less than 20% in November. How do you lose everything? But I don't know.
I actually know. Is this his uncle? I don't know if you guys saw this from one of the Barstool guys this week, like, because this is pretty bleak. This came out the other day. I tweeted this. Do you guys see this? I don't know if this will play, but this is how you lose. I'm just going to play this. I know it's 2 minutes long, but this is how you lose the money, Will, even when it's only down, when Bitcoin's only down 20%.
My brother Colin came over, who's like kind of been into Bitcoin for a while. Like he was on the Bitcoin train then. And he was like, "Hey, you should buy some of this Bitcoin. You should buy some of this Bitcoin." I'm like, I don't know. I was like, all right, fine. At the time, I remember a Bitcoin was like, I want to say it was like $12,000 or like $13,000. And when I went to, I think I had say 10 grand or 11 grand. I was like, all right, I'll put this in. And I couldn't get one full Bitcoin. So whatever the price was, I was like $1,000 or $1,500 left being able to buy one Bitcoin. He's like, no, you don't need to buy a full one. Like you could like having 8/10 of a Bitcoin is fine. I was like, no, I need one. Like I'm just I don't want like a piece of it. I want one. So he's like, all right, fine. Like you're not listening to me. He's like, I'm telling you, you're making a mistake. But buy Ethereum. Buy Ethereum. I'm like, at one point it was like 47 grand, and then it was down to like
so your 10 grand or whatever it was had now reached 47 grand.
At one point it was like right around there, like high up, maybe 42, but it was in the 40s, I remember. And then currently it was like 33,000 or right around there. I'm very close. I'm not exact on these numbers.
Okay.
And I'm like, Pasha's like, yeah, Phantom Wallet, crypto, meme coins. Blah. I was like, all right, dude, just show me what to do. And I moved over whatever the 32, 33 grand into the Phantom Wallet, and then okay, I'm ready to go. He's like, you gotta be ready to fire. You gotta be ready to fire. You gotta be ready to fire. And I'm pulling into the Canton Sportsplex, and my phone rings. Hey, he dropped his coin. He dropped his coin. He dropped it. Let's go. So I'm like, I run in. I get rider skates on. I'm like, I'll be right out there. And I'm FaceTiming with this asshole, and I have my screen share on. So we're FaceTiming, but he's looking at my screen. He's telling me what to do. Press this button, buy this, sell this, transfer this. Okay. Boom. I get this greed. It's a greed coin. Like, so mad at him. I could scream right now. But I got my greed coin. I get on the ice. Like, they've already started the line skate. I'm like, sorry, boys, I had to use the bathroom. Oh, meanwhile, I was trading meme coins from some asshole named Pasha who taught me how to do it.
The king.
Buddy, I get off the ice. I pull up my Phantom Wallet. I got $800.
Oh, ouch!
I lost $32,000.
Within a
$32,200. Buddy, it's a 50-minute practice. I was 6 minutes late.
Oh, that's an
44
expensive practice.
So, I mean, I think the takeaway is pretty clear. Most people, I think, know this, which is, you're not meant to be, playing in the trenches unless you're ready to get shelled,
Yeah.
Clearly, Will, your uncle's friends weren't just buying and holding Bitcoin. That's clear.
Yeah, 100%.
What about you, Zach? Any takeaways from the family at Thanksgiving or?
No, this was the first year not a single person brought it up once. Like last year, everybody was super excited, like right after the election. I think we were actually pushing up around this about the same price we were at this year. It was like around 92-95K.
Flat.
So yeah, like flat, nobody said a word about it, but my one uncle who I introduced to Solana and a couple apps on there is still kicking and using it. He's trading bottles of liquor on a Solana application. So
That's awesome.
We got like
Bottles of liquor.
Yeah, there's like an alcohol marketplace on Solana that lets you trade bottles as NFTs. So
Yeah,
1
and-
year later, he's still doing that, but hasn't touched Bitcoin.
Yeah, we were not quite exactly the same price on Thanksgiving, but we ran up to about like almost 92 last Thursday on Thanksgiving. So I was looking at this chart and in nominal terms, I think this is equivalent to the difference between 2017 and 2018. But of course that was almost a 50% decline from all-time high, or from the prior Thanksgiving price in 2017. This is a much smaller percentage decline Thanksgiving over Thanksgiving. Probably the biggest was 21 to 22 Thanksgiving. Look at that. You were euphoric in 21. You were despondent in 22, merely a few weeks after Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX exploded. But I mean, I think another way I like to look at this sometimes is the year low, the daily close by year low, or I don't know how we close this. The daily close by year, daily low close. That's how I say it. So like the lowest price of the year by year is another way to look. Now, I'll be honest here. I only really bust out this chart when the prices aren't doing well, but I think it's worth noting that over a long time horizon, Bitcoin has performed well. And that was the message I carried to my friends and family. My great-grandmother, my grandmother held her 7 great-grandsons this last week. So talk about hodling. And yeah, in my family, we all just have boys. So there's 7 young boy great grandchildren of my grandmother. I would say like it was muted. I don't think
Yeah.
because what we have even at where are we trading now, around 85K as we record this on Monday, December 1st, like it's down a fair amount from all-time high, but it doesn't feel like a complete collapse, at least not yet. So and we've talked about that. Let's move on. There was interesting news this morning. Michael Saylor and his company Strategy announced that they've established a $1.4 billion stockpile of dollars. They're stockpiling dollars over at Strategy. They say it's so that they can carry the amount of cash needed to pay the dividends for their preferred securities for up to 24 plus months. I think the amount they have now will fund their dividends for 21 months. So presumably that they'll raise more cash. And they got the cash by selling at the ATM, selling MSTR shares at a 1.17x MNAV, they said. I think this is the first time that MicroStrategy has hit the ATM for the sole purpose of stockpiling dollars. What is the take here? Anybody have a good take?
This just reminds me of that one clip of Saylor where he's talking about like dollars and Bitcoin on some interview, and he's like, "Oh, people who save in dollars, we call them poor." And it's just like this viral clip about, I don't know. That's kind of what I've been seeing. But yeah, I mean, seems like this is probably a good move to avoid forced Bitcoin selling, especially right now with big downturn in Bitcoin, pretty volatile. But yeah, I mean, curious what you guys think.
I mean, they're not the first DAT to do this, right? I think did we see BMNR also shoring up cash to ensure that they could or potentially do stock buybacks at some point. So, but I think it's definitely noticeable that this is like the flagship digital asset treasury company taking a move like this, and definitely emblematic of the where we are in terms of Bitcoin price and how people feel about the market. Are these the famed green dots that he tweeted about over the
Yeah.
weekend?
Yeah, they
Okay.
are.
Interesting. So green dots is for selling MSTR shares then?
No, it's for buying dollars, I think, instead of buying coins. I think that's the
well, right
yeah.
over my head.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it raises questions for some of the smaller debts. Like, not everybody is MicroStrategy or BMNR. Like, they have the privilege of being able to hit the ATM to shore up dollars and create a stockpile for future installation. Like, not everybody else has that privilege. I mean, it seems like all of the others are kind of just doing buybacks and in some cases actually selling the underlying. But I guess it's just more of a question of like how that will intensify moving into the future.
Yeah, I think it also shows how much Michael Saylor values not selling Bitcoin. He does not want to sell Bitcoin. I think he correctly fears like a spiral that could occur if Strategy were to start selling Bitcoin. The negative sentiment leading to lower Bitcoin price, lowering his MNAV, maybe causing him to have to sell more Bitcoin. So I think it's an interesting strategy in this way. It definitely feels like a defensive maneuver to protect against the idea that we could be entering a prolonged bear market where his MNAV may not be sufficient for him to hit the ATM at all going, in the near term. But definitely notable. This is a guy, like you said, Will, who now he's not saving in dollars. He's hoarding dollars in order to pay dividends in dollars. But
Yeah,
right,
no, it's definitely not the same thing. It's just reminding me of that.
no, it's relevant, I think, though. And I think, right, because the alternative would have been that when the preferred dividends come due, if he doesn't have the cash, then he sells Bitcoin to fund them. And that's what he wants to avoid. So definitely notable. I mean, a sign of the market that we're in, obviously. I mean, this would have been unthinkable a year ago or 6 months ago. Well, the story keeps getting interesting, and it does keep, because the first major L1 launch, I don't know in how long, at least a year and a half, maybe more. It happened last week. We talked about it a bit on this show. Monad, a new parallelized EVM L1 launched. Will, you've been tracking this. You wrote about some of what you'd seen in the newsletter, our newsletter last Friday. it went on a pretty good tear, almost doubled the ICO price, and then, well, what's happened since?
Yeah. No, I was joking. Like ever since I wrote the newsletter about it, it's kind of been down only. I was talking to Zach. If you look at the 1 day chart for it, it's literally just green candles and then only red candles. So kind of almost 2x from the Coinbase public sale price, which was 0.025. And now it's back down to, it's retraced below that price. But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest problem here, like the core issue, is that there's no really like net new on-chain money in crypto. People on Solana, you know, like I was looking at, the trenches on Monad. It just seems like so far it's essentially the Solana trenches, but tokens don't go as high. Everybody's kind of bridging with funds that they've like been scavenging over the past few months. Everybody's just gotten so wrecked on all these PvP coins. I will say though, the launch was very smooth. Like the airdrops and integrations were all there on day one. Like you could, if you were qualified, eligible for an airdrop, and you claimed it, it was already in your wallet right away. But yeah, I mean, we got like 150 mil TVL on DeFi Llama right now. The biggest launch was essentially like this mascot token. It kept getting delayed due to like sniper concerns. And so what they did is they posted the contract address on Twitter, kind of broken up into 3 lines, because snipers scrape Twitter for the text and then snipe a bunch of the tokens that way. And obviously it was still sniped anyway. People probably had some advanced like image scraping tools. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the integrations are awesome, but like I said, I think this core issue is that there's just no net new on-chain money.
Yeah, I think the net new on-chain money is definitely a good point. I think the other thing here is for a long time, the default activity when a new chain launched was to go on and play the meme coin space. But the meme coin space as a whole, not only is there less money, but it's just gotten to the point where it's like there's no longer a game there, right? The players have become so sophisticated that if you are not the most sophisticated player, you're probably just going to be losing money. And so as a whole, it detracts from that activity. And I think like for me, what I've been thinking in terms of Monad, because I'm not necessarily against the launch of new L1 chains. I do think on the technical side, like, Monad has built some very interesting and innovative tech. But like the question I think the team there needs to ask themselves is like, did they just launch a chain that is incrementally faster and has better UX than the existing alternatives? Or did they launch a chain that unlocks kind of like new design space for developers to build applications? Because I think that is where you see chains start to get traction. And it really reminds me of Solana back in 2023, where as we're starting to kind of regain momentum, when you went and talked to a lot of the developers on the chain and said, why are you building on Solana? Their answer was always, Solana is the only chain where I can build the application I want to build. And that's why they were there. That's why they held through the bear market and stuff like that. Same thing we've seen with Hyperliquid, right? When you go and talk to teams that are doing HIP3 and things like that, they'll say, well, Hyperliquid introduced a really new primitive in terms of how they built their perps market, and that's allowed us to build on top of that in ways we couldn't do elsewhere. And so I think for Monad, I'm not discounting that they haven't done this. I think it's just going to take time to play out. And I hope that it works out, because I do think it's a net positive for the space when we have new L1 chains that are successful and bring that new users and liquidity into the crypto space as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, it's also just like tough for general purpose chains because like there's really only a couple big primitives in DeFi with perps, spot trading, and lending. Like Ethereum has already proved to be super entrenched in the lending space, like and that's a sticky activity that's hard to move. So like presumably that's not going anywhere. Solana kind of has the spot trading cornered, especially in an environment where nobody is really trading meme coins. So like you can't even use that as the bootstrapping mechanism. And then obviously Hyperliquid with perps. I mean, it's like something we've talked about on the desk a bunch, but unlocking that new design space likely comes from more opinionated infrastructure, like something along the lines of Hyperliquid, versus just a general purpose like open canvas that says like come and build whatever. So like to Lucas's point, I think the opinionated infrastructure moving forward is likely, or I guess has like an easier path gaining traction than just like an open canvas network. But yeah, I guess we'll see what happens with Monad. But it is an interesting point that meme coins as sort of like a bootstrapping mechanism is like losing its potency. Like even in a world where prices were good and everybody was enthusiastic, like everybody kind of understands the game now, and I think that kind of reduces the potency of meme coins as a bootstrapping tool.
Yeah, 100%. I think like in the early days, before Pump Fund was super super big, it was like you could be a lot more comfortable buying tokens and holding them and joining these communities and like talking, and it was like good vibes and everybody was like happy they were doing crypto stuff. And now it's like if you're not super fast in the perfectly correct group chat sniping every token, like you're gonna just lose everything is what it seems like.
Yeah,
Not to
meme coins
punt.
were literally industrialized.
Yeah, not to pontificate on meme coins too much, but like it does actually give me hope that the pendulum has swung so far towards like PvP games that there will be a resurgence in memes at some point in the future where it'll just be like people are like, we're sick of this, like this is a good meme, let's go with it. I just that it might take quite a while for that to play out.
There's another interesting industrialization I think we've been seeing happen, which is the perpification of everything, right? Everyone launching perps. It's kind of this a similar, it's a different type of instrument than a meme coin, of course, and it's a financial instrument, not a financial asset the way a meme coin might be. But I feel that the October 10th blowout kind of has perhaps I don't know what the equivalent moment would be, the Trump coin moment, the sort of you know blew the doors off the perps thing, right? When you make perps, perpetual leveraged futures, the meta, you get a massive liquidations, right? Like that's, and now I saw Coinbase was talking, they have a report out that was talking about the perpification of everything. Are we just speed running ourselves? We're going to, everything cool that crypto builds, we're going to blow out and destroy until somebody comes and finds the decent version of it to rebuild on atop the rubble.
I mean, yeah,
It's like
most
always,
likely, yeah,
always has been, right?
yeah, exactly.
But that's also kind of the beauty of it too. Like no buyer of last resort. Like we build cool stuff, and then when it doesn't work, we just kind of build on top of what does work. Like I think the idea of just building off of a stronger base over time, there's something beautiful in that, and it's obviously been a huge asset to the industry. Even though it has caused a lot of pain over the years.
All right, let's move on to some quicker hits. Prediction market volumes have exceeded meme coin volumes. I think volumes, that's related. Are prediction markets the new meme coins? I don't know what that would even mean. Will, you were looking at this.
No, honestly, it sounds funny, but I think it's actually a little bit fair to say. Yeah, so Pump Fun daily volumes in September were around 200 mil. Now they're like 60 to 90 mil. Poly Market is up from 30 to 50 mil in September to like 100 to 130 mil daily volume. I just think that, this goes along with all the points that we just made, but prediction markets are just more sustainable. I kind of wrote about this in my State of the Meme Coins report. Meme coin trading is just seriously like negative EV for vast majority of participants. You're not going to get rugged on a prediction market or like buy something that's bundled by insiders and sniped. It's basically like people can still just use prediction markets to hedge other stuff. And, I was talking to Zach, like sports betting remains a big thing on prediction markets. I don't know how we feel about that, but, people are going to bet on what they want to bet on at the end of the day. But yeah, it's just more sustainable. Polymarket was on 60 Minutes last night. I don't know if any of you guys watched that, but I feel like it was kind of validating for Zach a little bit, just because I remember before I started working at Galaxy, I was reading all of Zach's prediction market stuff, and I feel like it's just like so cool how mainstream this stuff is. Like everybody's just realizing what Zach has been writing about for so long now. Yeah, I don't know. Galaxy research was early.
I mean, like I think it's cool, but maybe the takeaway that prediction markets are the new like meme coin market. I think maybe a little bit of a mischaracterization when we consider that most of the stuff people are doing on prediction markets is just sports gambling. So it's like we kind of just made like DraftKings the new meme coin meta in a way. We just brought the sports book to the blockchain. But no, I mean, I guess it's a little disappointing from my perspective to see sports gambling like the big use case for this. Like, I kind of looked at these as like oracles of information that we wouldn't otherwise have, and like that's still working. Like the political race markets are like clearly more opinionated and move much faster than like centralized like regular polls. So like that's still reassuring, but yeah, seeing like the big spike in volume mostly coming from sports gambling is a little disappointing from my perspective.
Yeah. Okay, maybe not exactly the new meme coins, but like it's not like impossible to have an edge on some of the niche markets, you know. And if you really pay attention to what's happening on Polymarket, like I don't know, I just think it's a lot easier to be profitable there than it is trading on-chain tokens. Is I guess the point. So that's why
Well,
it's
and the volume, to your point, like it's not, they're not equivalent, but the mind share is definitely switched more to prediction markets from meme coins from a pure meta standpoint. Yeah, the Poly Market founder was on 60 Minutes this weekend, and I think was on the cover of Forbes as
I know.
well.
I saw. Did you see that? Did you see the picture of him on Forbes next to SBF? It was like,
Yeah.
ugh.
Yeah, well, just that SBF was also on the cover of Forbes, but I
Yeah,
will
yeah,
say
yeah.
Forbes has a long history of featuring folks who later blow up. I mean, Elizabeth Holmes was on there, right? Like there were a bunch of people. So, I'm going to chalk that up to coincidence. It doesn't necessarily have predictive power, to use a pun. Anyway, interesting. Prediction markets definitely heating up. I think, it's possible. What do you guys think, by the way? December 17th is the Coinbase date in their profile on X. What would be your guess for what Coinbase plans to announce or release on that day? You can see it here, right here. Save the date. It's their pinned tweet. Anybody have an idea?
I mean, I was hoping for base token, but
I
I
don't
don't
think
know.
it's base.
Yeah,
I don't think it's.
I mean,
I
I
don't-
wouldn't be
base.
surprised
don't
if
think
it
it
was
is either.
prediction markets.
You don't think you wouldn't be surprised if it's prediction
I wouldn't
markets?
be. I wouldn't be surprised. Because
Yeah,
doesn't
that would be
Robinhood
my
already have an
bet.
integration with Kalshi?
Yeah, that would be my bet as a prediction market. But remember the
Yeah.
last time?
That's
Remember
a good idea.
they acqui-hired, I can't remember the guy's name, but spent a lot of money to buy a team to build an NFT marketplace to compete with Magic Eden and OpenSea, and that did not work in the end. Where's the NFT marketplace on Coinbase? Well, maybe it would have worked if NFTs proved more durable as a market, but yeah, I would guess a prediction market as well. They've already launched perps. They've already got futures. Like, I'm not quite sure.
I think it's going to be like a base app update that integrates like more features. Maybe one of them is prediction markets, but personally, that seems to have been their major focus. Like, is how do we make the base app the most compelling app to use for non-crypto people? And I think this is in line with that. The other thing I was thinking is the up only episode, possibly.
Oh
But
yeah.
that seems more far-fetched.
Well, yeah, but the tweet says, save the date, December 17th. We're unveiling the next evolution of Coinbase live on X. Maybe it is an up only episode live in which they
unveil it.
announce, in which they do the reveal. That would be pretty good. That would get a lot of people watching. Everybody likes, we like seeing Crypto Cobain, he used to be known as back when I first started following him. We like seeing him be on chain on X customer support for Coinbase, but I think we'd all prefer to see him get his spicy takes on what's going on in the market. All right, Lucas, there was a big Hyperliquid unlock hype. Their token had an unlock. When was the unlock? How much was it? What are we supposed to think about this?
Yeah, unlock was yesterday, November 29th. So when this podcast comes out, it'll be a few days before. I'd say it was probably like one of the most anticipated unlock events in crypto this year. And it was the first cliff unlock for Hyperliquid. I think everyone who's listening is probably familiar, but Hyperliquid is a pretty distinct product in that it doesn't have any venture capital investors. So the team is really the only holders with kind of locked supply. In total, they unlocked about 1.75 million hype. That's about $52 million. And interestingly enough, I think there was a lot of speculation going into it. I personally thought that they were going to make an announcement that they were going to kind of like extend the vest or something like that. And I think that's kind of what was baked into the price. And instead, what we saw is about 23% of it was sold OTC to Flowdesk. 42% of it was staked, and 35% has just been kind of left in the wallets that they unlocked to. So I don't think it's a bad outcome. I think if you don't think that these people who've built this product deserve to, be able to sell their part of their equity or tokens since the product launch, then I think you're kind of delusional. And then to put it in perspective, like this was 1.75 million hype. Over the past month, Hype has bought back through their assistance fund, like I think 1.88 million hype. So it's like basically almost equal to the amount that the assistance fund is buying back. We'll now see monthly unlocks kind of kick off for the team. But like personally, what I'm watching, what I think is kind of the nearer term headwind is you have a ton of airdrop recipients that have just now hit the 1 year for their long-term capital gains from the airdrop. And, they received this airdrop at 0, so they're up huge. And so I think that might be kind of a headwind for the hype price for the next few weeks. There's also the Hyperliquid DAC company. I think it's called San. They're going to be renaming it to Per, which is like the meme coin on Hype. And they're holding a vote this week to basically like officially like acquire the hype that they want, and I think that's about 300 million or so in hype buying that they might do. But all of that aside, like for me, this is kind of like what a healthy project that's like kind of growing and maturing looks like, right? Like you have team members who deserve to sell, but that's fine as long as you believe that the underlying product is going to continue to succeed. And Hype has continued to do, I think it's doing like 10% of Binance volumes, 30% of OKX and Bybit. You've got their builder codes, which have generated, 40 million in revenues and brought in 3 million new users to the product. You've got their HIP3 product, which allows people to launch their own markets on the Hyperliquid Perpetuals infrastructure. The most successful one there has been like their stock XYZ 100 product, and that's doing like 150 million in daily volume. It's like the 5th to 4th most traded token on Hyperliquid, which I think a lot of people were skeptical about if what people were going to want to trade equities when they come on chain. And, that's a real testament right there. And then you also have the team kind of experimenting, it looks like, with a borrow lend protocol that they might be integrating into their Hypercore, which is the perps part of their chain. So all in all, I think the unlock is probably going to be a non-event in the future. And I think Hyperliquid as a whole has done probably the best job you can do in terms of having a massive cliff unlock coming up and kind of getting people to remain to keep belief in the team and what they're going to do longer term.
Hyperliquid hype trading almost 50% below its all-time high, but that's not irregular in this market at the moment. I don't know if I can, when it's probably trading. I don't have the price chart back far enough because I'm looking at it on Binance, but and they didn't list it until June of this year or so. But trading basically at the lowest level since early spring of last year. All right, last topic before we get to our quick hits of the week. Ethereum, did I say Ethereum? Ethereum has a major network upgrade this week, Fusaka, that's going to add some interesting features. It's one, but I would say sort of the biggest takeaway that I've seen is that it will increase the blob size, which is the space in a block in which L2s post their data. So it should further lower the fees paid by L2s on the network. PeerDAS will unlock up to 8x data throughput by validating data via sampling. I remember Christine Kim had explained to me sampling here. It's quite interesting and a technological achievement that brings a lot of scaling. But again, fees, if you look at this chart, I mean, the fees on Ethereum are as low as they've almost ever been, the lowest since 2020 in dollar terms. If we look at our friends Coin Metrics, you're looking at yesterday an average mean transaction fee paid by an L1, so not by the L2s and the blobs, this is like a regular L1 transaction, of 23 cents. The last time it was that low was April of 2020. So I guess my point here is, are they building a highway that may never be driven upon? Why? And by the way, this upgrade Fusaka, in addition to some other, again, legitimately interesting technological things, that also increases the block size, basically, which is the gas limit on Ethereum. Don't they need more fees on the L1? Even Vitalik is calling for people to use the L1. So what is going on here in Ethereum land? Aren't they meant to slow down some of the block size increases that they're doing? To give the demand side, aka the rollups and the transaction demand, sort of a chance to catch up. It's a question that I have.
I mean, on the fees chart you showed, like there's a lot baked into that with like block size increases. So more block space, more supply. If demand doesn't reach it, like naturally the transaction fee is going to go down, which I actually think is net positive for the L1. Like it's kind of tough because you need to strike a chord between cheap fees, but also be able to achieve the scale that allows you to have higher top line revenue, which I'm not sure your chart showed, but yeah, they've been incrementally rolling out updates to make block sizes bigger, which is being reflected in that transaction fee chart. But on the blobs, like I think you want as many as possible. Like even though there's kind of like this argument, like oh, it doesn't make a lot of revenue for ETH if blobs are literally paying like 10 cents a day. I still think you want to have scale there, because again, they made the strategic decision to push all the builders and the users up to these L2s. Like you want to make sure the user experience there stays like at least as good as it is now, if not better. So having more blobs, I think, is also net positive. But I think like the interesting takeaway from the whole thing is like how little it's actually being discussed on Twitter, and like even just like infrastructure network upgrades as a whole, like across all networks, is just under discussed. Like nobody's mentioning like even things happening on Solana, like BAM and the compute unit per block up increase. Like
Even
there's
the
very little
proposed
discourse
Solana
around those things.
inflation reduction proposal, the new one, 411, SIMD 411, which Lucas, you wrote about in our newsletter last week, and we talked about on the show last week, not getting a lot of conversation in the sort of broader crypto ecosystem. What do we
Yeah,
make of this?
I think people just really want to see like apps with lots of users, and they've taken it as the default that these chains and the type of tech and engineers have the ability to scale them to where they need to be over time. So it's no longer a surprise when these types of upgrades come out, because like that's just what we've become used to. And now it's like, all right, great. Like once again, we've expanded our total block capacity, but it's not like blocks are getting filled, you know? It's not like we're seeing spikes in gas fees and in user transaction costs. So I like these will become exciting when that starts to happen again. And until then, it's just going to be all right, well, we're just building more block space that's going to need to be filled by applications that we have yet to see materialize. And I do think one interesting like area where we might start to see blocks start to get more filled is over the coming years, as agents become more prevalent. And I'm not saying we're there yet, even remotely. I think there's issues on the intelligence side in terms of the AI and on the infrastructure side in terms of implementing them. But you can envision a world where if you have tons of agents transacting nonstop, where suddenly blocks do start getting filled, and you do need these types of tech improvements that bring down gas costs and ensure that you can have hundreds of millions of transactions and things like that.
People don't want to talk about this until we get millions of app users or the prices go up.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a direct relationship between price and people's interest in these kinds of things. So it's not all that surprising.
All right, before we wrap up, quick hits. What are we watching this week? First week of December. Zach, I'll kick it off to you, man, first.
Yeah, I've been monitoring the ST USDS pool debacle. There was some drama there with people not being able to withdraw their USDS or their lent USDS liquidity from the pool. So they spun up like a curve pool to give people the optionality to swap out. But Sky ended up using the wrong pool configuration and they had to recreate a new one. So yeah, just seeing what unfolds there.
All right, Lucas.
Everyone listening to the podcast is like, what did Zach just say right there? I'm looking at I think we've got two big conferences over the next 2 weeks. You got Binance Week, Smart Chain Week this week, and then you've got Solana's Breakpoint Conference next week. And I think especially like what Zach just said, like people aren't interested because price go down. There's often a lot of opportunities and announcements that go under the radar, and so looking for what's going to come out of those.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you forgot about the Midwest Blockchain Conference, sir. That's this weekend. So that's like the student conference. Shout out Evan Solomon. But yeah, I mean, it always makes me bullish to see all the cracked students in the crypto space, especially at like the hackathons. But yeah, I'm watching a few things. I don't like what comes next with prediction markets. You know, we were just talking about all this leverage trading with perps. You know, there are these teams building leverage prediction markets on Solana. So seeing what happens there. Obviously going to be watching Monad, see if it can rebound a little bit. And then haven't really talked about Zcash too much since the crazy run up, but down to trading around $360. So we'll see if like the privacy narrative continues or, you know, fading out.
Yeah, Zuko was also tweeting about Futarchy, so maybe they'll implement a new governance mechanism at some point.
Yeah, Zcash not doing great here after that run up. But you know, it is what it is. I think a lot of people. Well, I think I expected this. We talked about this weeks ago, and this how we thought this was also an intra crypto rotation and not so much a new money entrance. I'm going to be watching to see if the Bitcoin ETFs continue to hold pretty strong. They have not seen. We've seen in nominal terms some of the largest outflows. I think the largest outflow days that we've ever seen since they launched in January 2024. But again, still pretty much holding strong. It felt more like, who was responsible for this Bitcoin downturn? The call is coming from inside the house. It was not coming from the ETF holders, but watching them. Also looking to see if Congress makes any progress this week on the crypto market structure bill in the Senate. We've basically got an impasse between the pro-crypto Democrats and the Republicans about what to do with DeFi, if anything. We've talked about that on this show before as well. So as far as I know, no resolution there yet. Will be interesting to see because clock is ticking. And some key members of the Senate have called for something to be introduced on the floor before the year end. I'm doubting that. Hitting the X doubt button. And that's it. And then following, seeing whether we can get some kind of spark here to end the year would be exciting. That's it for this week's episode of Galaxy Grid. Thank you to Will Owens, Lucas Chayan, and Zach Picorni. And we will see you all next week.